Welcome to Starspeak with astrologer Maureen Richmond. Here's where you'll find the latest news on what's up with the heavens. Looking for the inner message from outer space? This is your place. So join me in welcoming your host, astrologer Maureen Richmond.
Welcome, star friends. I'm Maureen Richmond, and you're listening to Starspeak on the UNX digital broadcasting platform. I'm so glad to be here to share information with you today, and I thank you for stopping in to join me in this exploration of the energies that we're all experiencing. Today's date is October the 18th, the year 2023. Tonight's program will cover the following topics. First, the astrological influences behind recent world events. That's something we're all interested in and concerned about. Second, projections for the week of October 18 through 25. That's the week ahead. Third, a consideration of why the UFO journalist George Knapp has been able to make such a success of being a UFO-oriented writer. And finally, a consideration of the role of Saturn, the planet Saturn, during the Malmstrom Air Force Base event of 1975. And when we're all done, you'll see how it all fits together. So let's get started. Right off the top, we want to know about the astrological influences behind recent world events. And I think probably the most important two factors that we all need to know about are as follows. Pluto is currently transiting the sign of Capricorn, and Uranus is currently transiting the sign of Taurus. These are both outer planets in the astrological system. Pluto is a planet in astrology still, yes. And because these bodies are at the edge of the solar system, they symbolize within the astrological spiritual system the higher worlds, the next dimensions of consciousness, our connections with infinity even. It's the sign transits of the outer planets that really drive the evolutionary experiences of humanity. So it's very important to take a consideration of what these two planets are doing. So Pluto's moving through Capricorn, which is an earth sign, and has been doing so since the year 2008. It takes about 16 years or so for Pluto to move through one sign of the zodiac. And Uranus has been moving through Taurus since 2018. It takes about 7 years for Uranus to move through a sign of the zodiac. So both of these outer planets are in earth signs because Capricorn and Taurus are both earth signs. Now, these are outer planets, and that means that they deal with transcendental matters, not daily matters, not the status quo, not what we already know about, but the next dimensions. However, the earth signs are inclined towards materiality, and that's their function in the zodiac. There's nothing wrong about that. It's the role that they naturally play within the 12 signs of the zodiac. We have the fire signs, we have the air signs and the water signs, and the earth signs. The earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Their role within the zodiacal round is to bring ideas into manifestation, tangibility in the real world of physical experience. So the earth signs naturally are concerned with the matters of the physical plane. And this is true whether you are an earth sign or not, because we're all experiencing the collective transits. Pluto's passage through Capricorn and Uranus in its passage through Taurus constitute the collective transits that everybody experiences. So no matter what sign one is experiencing a strong presence of the earth signs currently. But both Pluto and Uranus tend to disrupt and dislodge the functioning of whatever they touch, because they bring in insight, change, reorientation, reevaluation, sudden understanding, a different direction. And those are the energies that are working within these earth signs. Now, the earth signs have as their purview security, predictability, stability, something that you can rely on, regularity. That's an important element of life. We like what is steady in our environment. We like for our homes to be steady. We don't like for the earth to move underneath our buildings in earthquakes and things of that nature. And yet, with Pluto and Uranus both operating in earth signs right now, literally, the earth is moving and shaking under our feet. And metaphorically, that's true. Both Capricorn and Taurus are connected with money, finances, financial security, the ability to be productive. And with these two outer planets operating in the field of the security zone, that pattern of security and what we become accustomed to and rely upon is changing. So we are in a period in which our financial systems are undergoing rapid transformation, as everyone knows, and our sense of where reward comes from, our sense of where financial supply comes from is being challenged. It's being disconnected from our assumptions of the past. In fact, I think it would be very appropriate and correct to say that as long as Pluto is in Capricorn and Uranus is in Taurus, we are experiencing a disruption of everything that the earth element connotes. What is the purpose of this, you could ask? It is to dislodge humanity from its greed, from its possessiveness, from its insensitivity to the conditions of others, but more fundamentally, from its narrow-minded conception of what creativity is all about. You know, we've gotten the idea that the government is the source of all good, or that commerce is, or that corporations are, and that in order to play in the game, it's necessary to conform to the expectations of those systems. Metaphysically, we know that's not true. We know that divine energy comes from higher sources, and that it's the state of consciousness which bridges between infinity and materiality. And that it's the state of consciousness that can open the door for the manifestation of a different and better world. So that's what the purpose of these long-term transits really is. So Pluto is in Capricorn from 2008 up until the present time, and then we've got some other energies coming in with Pluto and Aquarius next year, but it's still in Capricorn right now. Pluto is at the 28th degree of Capricorn. That's important. Every sign in the zodiac has 30 degrees of space within it, and when a planet reaches the 28th and 29th degree, such as Pluto has done recently, astrologically, it signifies the final stages of some process. The final stages, and you know the final stages oftentimes represent the death throes of a process. As far as the passage of Pluto through Capricorn, that's where we are as a collective of humanity on this planet. We are experiencing the final stages of whatever this process, which started in 2008, has all been about. If you look back to about 2008, you'll see that that was the beginning of a series of financial crises that affected the entire world, especially and including investments, banking, central banks, and that sort of area of life. Now, Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018 and will be there since 2025. It's currently located about the 22nd degree of Taurus. So it's getting on towards the end of its time in that Earth sign as well. So by two markers, we are in an experience now that is culminating a message that the universe has been trying to give us for the last many years, since 2008 in the case of Pluto, and since 2018 in the case of Uranus, which is now in the Earth sign of Taurus. And so what's been brought into question during that time is our sense of material security, of our foundations in life, what we believe to be supporting us, what we think belongs to us, our possessions, our money spending patterns, our income sources, the types of material used for transactions, whether it's currency or credit cards or electronic transfers. All of these areas cannot help but be brought to our attention and transformed as these outer planets work through the Earth signs of Capricorn and Taurus. Just as an example, let's take a look at what Uranus and Taurus has generated. For example, think back to the summer of 2022. During that time, there was a triple conjunction in Taurus. The lunar north node and Mars and Uranus all conjoined the same degree in the sign of Taurus. During that time, the congressional hearings that were the precursor to present-day UFO disclosure progress suddenly occurred. So there was a big change in consciousness, and that's the way, of course, Uranus works, to dislodge stubborn patterns, gripping and holding on to monetary distribution within government circles. Next year, in April of 2024, Uranus and Taurus will be again accented when the planet Jupiter, which is also now in Taurus, conjoins Uranus at the 22nd degree of Taurus and puts a tremendous emphasis on both the power of the planet and the sign. So that's Uranus and Taurus. So we'll see these themes written large. At that time, April of 2024, there's also a total solar eclipse that month with Mercury retrograde conjunct the Sun and a Mars-Saturn conjunction at 15 degrees of Pisces. All these indicators mark April of 2024 as a critical juncture in humanity's experience of manifesting productivity and prosperity, as well as a critical juncture in humanity's experience of the beyond as embodied in the UFO phenomenon. So that's a little bit of what's behind world events currently. More recently, there have been a lot of astrological energies that have stirred up negative emotions. And that's always a potential when we have powerful astrological transits. And there have been some of late. For example, as I discussed in a couple of previous Starspeak shows, Mars was conjunct the lunar south node on October 4. emphasizing the energies of Mars, anciently the god of warfare and aggression. In modern astrology, Mars does not always connote armed conflict, but it is the drive for survival. And humanity must have this within it. But when these energies get riled up and stirred up and antagonized, they can get out of control and result in serious confrontations and conflagrations. For Mars does also rule weaponry, explosions, fire, and destruction in its negative aspect. So that sort of archetypal material was stimulated October the 4th. Now, the world around, people did not go into hyper overdrive and expressing their resentment and anger. But in some places where people were already on edge, it was almost inevitable that these astrological strike points would register. Next came the Mars-Pluto square on October 8, which again brought up the energies of Mars and Pluto, both of which anciently were connected to battle, injury, and death. Then Pluto made a direct station on October 10, re-emphasizing the energies and powers of Pluto. And finally, the solar eclipse occurred on Saturday, October the 14th. That's the date for the United States. I believe it would have been over into the 15th for the Pacific Rim. So that's a lot of astrological intensity, all concentrated within a very short period of time. And when intense astrological activations are concentrated within a short period of time, there's almost always a dramatic reaction from humanity. And that's exactly what has occurred. Now, these influences are not permanent, and that suggests to me that the flare-ups of animosity and intense resentment and anger, where those things have occurred, has the possibility of being wound back down or spiraling back down to a lesser state of activation as we move forward and these influences begin to fade into the past. And for people who were just not involved in such intense confrontations, these energies were still palpable and pointed out issues and situations in life that are disturbing or perhaps need to be addressed. And so everybody had a degree of psychological unrest, agitation, concern during these periods of time. As all this is happening, the United States of America is having its Pluto return, as I've mentioned many times before. When the United States was born, with the signing of the Declaration of Independence, Pluto sat at the 28th degree of Capricorn. Pluto has been in that position astrologically in the years 2022 and 2023. It takes about 248 years for Pluto to go around the solar system and hence through the whole zodiac. So that's about the age of the United States now. And the United States is therefore having its Pluto return, which is a very profound development and brings up the question of whether or not the unit of government that we know as the United States of America shall continue in its original form. What does Pluto do when it works in a sign? Well, it intensifies the issues associated with that sign. And Capricorn is a sign of government, authority, regulation, and the power to rule. So Pluto's presence in Capricorn would have intensified those issues and questions and the use of power, and the right uses of power and the wrong uses of power in any case. but it's doing it especially dramatically in the case of the United States because the United States as a collective entity is experiencing its Pluto return right now. And we can see what's going on in the governmental sector that reflects this. When Pluto is in Capricorn and it works on the nature of ethics in government, it dredges up the hidden problems and areas that are needing attention. In the area of Capricorn, when it gets out of hand and it is operating as a negative archetypal image, it manifests as greed, the lust for power, carnality, perversity, and the love of subjugating others. So Pluto has stimulated all that problematic drive that exists within the psyche of humanity during this time. But it's for a therapeutic process. It's a catharsis. It's so that we may be able to see what lurks in the dark of these layers, that it may be acknowledged, overcome, unchosen, and healed. So we have tests of character with Pluto in Capricorn, and the bringing out of severe character failings, a greater understanding. So we witness situations where character failings are greatly in evidence as Pluto moves through Capricorn in the world stage, affecting world leaders, because Capricorn is connected with the executive role. And that's where this drama is playing out. With the Pluto return and with strong Pluto influences, it is possible that there can be collapse, disintegration of corrupt governmental and corporate structures, and the exposure to public awareness of extreme decadence and decay in government and corporate environments. Indeed, we have seen this very sort of thing happening over the last few years, and I don't think I need to remind you what it's all about, because people watch the news and they know very well that we're being treated to precisely that. These influences are not permanent, though. Next year, Pluto will move into the sign of Aquarius in late January of 2024. And it will stay there for about 7 months. We get kind of a preview of what it will be like when Pluto enters Aquarius and stays there for about 18 years. So we get a good preview of that starting in early 2024. Pluto will then draw our attention to the issues of the sign of Aquarius. And that's going to be a significant change for us. Now, we had a brief experience of this earlier in 2023 when Pluto was in Aquarius from late March through mid-June of 2023. Late March through mid-June of 2023. So that was the spring and early summer in the Northern Hemisphere. You can think back to that time and see if you noticed any differences in your personal life. I'll bet you did. Pluto was in Aquarius late March through mid-June 2023, and that was a tiny preview of what it will be like when we have it for 18 years. Then we're going to get another preview that will be twice that long in 2024. We get to stick more of our toes in the waters of the water bearer Aquarius and see what that's all about. Late January of 2024 through late July of 2024. Aquarius is a completely different dynamic than Capricorn. It's about the free flow of information and the ability of the individual to independently examine ideas and come to his or her own understandings or conclusions. Interestingly, when Pluto goes into Aquarius in 2024, will be the time that the wheels of government will start to turn after the Schumer-Rounds amendment comes into effect mandating action toward full UFO disclosure. So we'll see how that works out. I would say from the astrological side of it, it looks very likely that indeed some type of legislative process will support the more Aquarian point of view. The Capricornian point of view is to control everything out of fear and distrust. The Aquarian point of view is different. It returns the power to the people for them to make their own decisions. This will affect many areas of life, not just UFO disclosure, lots of areas of life, and we'll see how that works out. We're heading up to a break here now, and I'll be back after break to explain the energies ahead for the next week. George Knapp with Saturn in Libra and the Malmstrom Air Force Base event of 1975 with Saturn's role there. See you back after the break.
It's almost here, ladies and gentlemen. The UNX Network Year 2 anniversary at XCon 2023. XCon is being held this year from October the 30th to November 1st at the beautiful Oasis Hotel and Conference Center in Springfield, Missouri. Top speakers include host of America Unearthed, Scott Walter, plus Haley Ramsey, Sev Tak, UNX's very own Maureen Richmond and Dan Terry, Mindy Toutfest, Harriet McFeely, Forrest Crawford, and many more. And they're all coming to deliver new information on topics like UFOs, alien encounters, cryptids and ancient secrets, and real hauntings from the afterlife. Join us for the film premiere of A Haunting in Blue Hill. And don't miss the Mad Hatter Paranormal Halloween Bash, Banquet, and Costume Contest on All Hallows Eve, October 31st. So join us as we close out the 2023 conference season. Info and tickets are available now at unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com, and we'll see you there.
Welcome back, Star Friends. I'm Maureen Richmond, and you're listening to Starspeak on the UNX digital broadcasting platform. So glad to have you back here to talk more about the energies that we're all experiencing. Well, while Pluto and Uranus are in the background, shaking the foundations of our existence and attempting to pry us off our limited materialistic attitudes, we have some other energies that are circulating that we have to work with as we go through this big transformation. And it is a big transformation. It's big transformation for all of us, no matter what our ages or what our astrological sun signs are or what our charts are like. We're all going through this together. Well, right now, we're working with the energies of the waxing moon. Yeah, the moon was new this past Saturday. In fact, that was a solar eclipse, and solar eclipses are nothing but very strong new moons. The position was 21 degrees Libra. So we had a seeding moment in consciousness that concerns the Libran archetype. And I want you to hold that in mind because that's one of the things I'm going to be talking about in this segment tonight for the show. The power of Libra, it's a very critical archetype in human experience. The symbolism is the scales. The idea is the two sides, or the balance, the weighing and balancing pans on the two sides of the scales, and they're interacting with each other. So the implication is interaction or relationship or a dialogue or exchange going on between two entities. Libra is therefore connected with the notion of relationships and the dynamic that goes on in relationships. And that's relationships, whether we're talking about romance, marriage, friendship, business, collaboration, neighborhood connections, organizations, or what have you. All kinds of human relationships are symbolized by the archetype of Libra. And we're all experiencing a lot of Libra right now because currently the sun is in Libra, but even more importantly, Mercury's in Libra, conjunct the transiting lunar south node, which is also in Libra. So we're getting this blast of Libra energy right now as we move through the waxing moon phase. Now, what we're working up to is pretty important, and that's the full moon, which comes on Saturday, October 28th. Remember, one of the most basic rhythms in human experience is the pulse, which goes from new moon to full moon and then back to new moon. So we're now in that surge of energy from the new moon, which occurred just the other day, and we're riding that wave up to the full moon, which occurs on Saturday, October 28th. And is that going to be a full moon to remember? Yes, the sun will be at 5 degrees of Scorpio by that time, and the moon, of course, will be at 5 degrees of Taurus to oppose it within the zodiac. And that's the definition of a full moon: the sun on one side of the earth and the moon on the other. That's a sun-moon opposition. So they're in opposite signs. So the sun will be in Scorpio at the 5th degree, and the moon will be at the 5th degree of Taurus. It will also be a partial lunar eclipse. And at the same time, get this, transiting Mars in Scorpio at that time will oppose Jupiter in Taurus. Mercury by that time also in Scorpio will oppose Jupiter. And Mercury and Mars, by that time, both in Scorpio, will be conjunct. So that's a tremendous amount of astrological intensity all on one day. All on one day. The full moon of Saturday, October 28th. That's what we're working up to now. On the way, we have the sun conjunct Mercury on the 19th and 20th of October, which is the next couple of days. And that kind of brings into focus what I'm calling the UFO viewing opportunity period. Yes, because Mercury has been conjunct the transiting lunar south node this week, and then the sun and Mercury will conjoin right there too. What I've learned from doing a lot of research on UFO sightings and encounters is that many of them occur with some celestial body aspecting the nodal axis. That's the lunar north and south node axis. That's happening right now, and it's creating an opportunity window, or a window of opportunity, a time to make connection with the next dimension. And you might experience that in various ways, but the opportunity is certainly there. And I've written about that on the UNX blog. You can find an article there that explains all about it. So take a look at the UNX blog, which is really a great source of information. My posting there is just one of many articles that you will probably find very informative and entertaining. So have a look there. Well, so as we move towards this high point on Saturday, October 28th, we have the emphasis on the Sun and Mercury and the lunar south node all for the moment in the relational, interactional, transactional sign of Libra. And you can see how this is manifesting in the world because there's a great dialogue going on now about the central theme of Libra, which is justice and fairness. What is fair? What is right? How shall people be treated? That's a considerable focus of discussion right now for matters in the Middle East. And all of our prayers and best wishes go out for a speedy diplomatic resolution there, using the powers of Libra, which are rationality and negotiation. Libra is one of the most, potentially most objective signs in the zodiac. It has the ability to enter into deliberation calmly and logically. Or rationally. Rationally is probably a better word for Libra because logic is really the territory of who? Well, Virgo, Gemini, and Virgo. Yeah. So rationality, objectivity, calm reasoning, that's the zone of Libra. And we have those energies very strongly right now to work with. And continuing pretty closely up to that full moon period. As a matter of fact, the Sun in Libra will square Pluto the 20th and 21st of October on the way to that full moon experience, emphasizing that power struggle that we see in the squares in the negotiation process of Libra and Pluto political power. That's not a particularly easy influence. 20 through 21 October. It does intensify all the political, geopolitical, and interorganizational conflicts and issues that we are observing right now on the world stage. Overlapping that are some calming and pacifying influences coming from a Venus-Jupiter trine and a Mercury-Saturn trine, which will both affect October 21 and 22, contributing to peace of mind and helping many locate solutions for income and employment. That's the Venus-Jupiter trine and Mercury-Saturn trine of October 21 through 22. George Knapp is a good case in point to consider in regard to the power of Libra. He's a UFO writer and journalist. I'm sure everybody knows he's distinguished himself in many ways. And he's been recognized professionally with many awards. He's written and co-authored books on ufology, and he was the critical information point that made it possible for Bob Lazar to come out with his expose about retrieved alien craft decades ago. George Knapp was born April 18, 1953. He is a sun sign Aries with his sun at 29 degrees of Aries. But he has a lot of Libra influence in his chart because he has both Saturn and Neptune in Libra, with Saturn at 24 degrees of Libra in retrograde motion at the time of his birth, and Neptune at 22 degrees of Libra, also in retrograde motion at the time of his birth. So there's only 2 degrees of difference between those two positions in the zodiac, and it's what we call a very tight conjunction. George Knapp has Saturn in Libra conjunct Neptune in Libra. And that really emphasizes the power of the sign of Libra. When I think of George Knapp, I think of someone who is even in temperament. He doesn't overreact. And that's part of the skill set that he has brought to the consideration of the highly controversial topic of UFOs and government programs that manage them. He doesn't lose his head. He doesn't make wild claims, and he doesn't prejudge anything. He takes a very relaxed, which is a Libran characteristic, a very relaxed approach and maintains his objectivity as he goes. I think the power of Libra in George Knapp's astrological signature is a significant factor that has contributed to his success, his Saturn in Libra. The virtues of Saturn are important here too in regard to his chart, and they're connected to self-control. When Saturn is operating positively as an archetype in a person's experience in the chart, astrologically or for the collective, it is a manifestation of wisdom gained through maturity, age, and experience. It's a power within human consciousness that allows for logical, careful, circumspect consideration of issues and options, and the ability to not fly off the handle. It's self-control, in a word. And Saturn is emphasized in George Knapp's astrological configuration because it's in a conjunction with Neptune. So that power of self-control is there, and it's visible. If you watch him in his podcast that he does with Jeremy Corbell, Weaponized, you'll see that he always offers a very reasoned and centrist observation on whatever topic they're examining of the day. Corbell's a little bit more excitable and emotional. George Knapp, by contrast, is quite the Saturnian figure there, keeping everything within bounds and staying in his own lane and not making any extreme or outlandish conclusions. Now, the power of Saturn, it not only acts within the human being and within the collective as an archetype of wisdom, age, and experience, apparently it also operates in moments of UFO sightings and encounters. There's one from historical accounts of UFO moments that I'd like to share with you. It occurred in 1975. There was a lot of UFO activity in that year, as students of ufology and ufological history know well. This was one of those. It occurred at a military installation up in the northern tier of the United States, actually, Malmstrom Air Force Base near Great Falls, Montana, which is way north in the United States, almost to the Canadian border. On November 7 and 8, 1975, there was a sequence of sightings, but they began at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on the 7th, November 7, 1975. And at 1 p.m., when these sightings began, Saturn was astrologically very powerful. It was sitting on the western horizon, the setting point, or as we say in astrological parlance, it was conjunct the descendant, Descendant, the descendant, meaning the point in the zodiac which was just disappearing over the western horizon. In fact, if anybody could have seen the western horizon at that point, they might have been able to see Saturn, but generally, when you're standing on the ground, it's impossible to see a celestial body setting because of trees and buildings and other things that are on the surface of the Earth. But Saturn would have been on the western horizon at the time that these UFO events began, November 7, 1975. So what happened at that point is that military personnel saw an orange glowing disc the size of a football field, just a football field, just a football field, just the size of a football field, an orange glowing disc the size of a football field, which hovered in the area. And as it hovered, as it was there, without touching anything, without any kind of visible physical contact, it apparently worked an effect on the mechanical operations of the intercontinental ballistic missiles that were in silos there at that Air Force base, and stopped them from being able to function. So it seems that the presence of that UFO achieved a type of nuclear disarmament. Some of those weapons there were nuclear weapons. They were the ones that were affected. Saturn, astrologically, as an expression of wisdom and self-control, is frequently involved with prevention, even obstruction, will cause the halting of activity if a wrong course is being taken. It will say, stop. No, you can't do that. Saturn is astrologically connected with laws and regulations that limit human behavior. Saturn is also connected with the completion phase and terminations. So here at the very time that UFOs appeared and interfered or stopped or obstructed or prevented the use of certain weapons, Saturn was astrologically very powerful. So it's all resonant. It all fits together. The moment that this experience began to unfold at Malmstrom Air Force Base in early November of 1975, the moment that this experience began to unfold, there was an astrological archetype in effect that was consonant with the results, that was consonant with the effect that the UFO appears to have had. There was an effect that was of the kind of Saturn. It stopped, it prevented, it obstructed, it halted, it terminated, it got in the way of, it said no to, it warned about, which is one of the roles of conscience coming from maturity and wisdom under the Saturnian archetype. So that's what was happening in that moment. There's a great study about the numerous UFO sightings and encounters that have occurred over nuclear installations the world around. UFOs and Nukes by Robert L. Hastings. The second edition was published in the year 2020. It's a big book, some 600 pages and more, as well as I recall. And it just goes through situation after situation, incident after incident, circumstance after circumstance, in military installations and manufacturing installations and storage installations, all that dealt with nuclear materials and nuclear weapons and UFO events that occurred over and around them. An abundance of reports in this regard. From all that information, Hastings deduces that there's a legitimate reason to believe that the UFO phenomenon has an interest in warning humanity away from using nuclear weapons because they threaten to obliterate life on our planet. That's his conclusion. That's his deduction after looking at this information in depth and in abundance. If there was ever a Saturnian message that anybody should issue, that would be one. Stop what you're doing. Think about what you're doing. control yourself, pull back, resist the temptation. Oh boy, resist the temptation to strike out at your neighbor so forcefully that your neighbor is eradicated. Resist that temptation. That's the message of Saturn. That's the message that Robert L. Hastings feels was also conveyed by these repeated, continuous, similar manifestations in nuclear-related facilities the world around. The Malmstrom Air Force Base event of November 7, 8, 1975 is just one of these. It's just one, but it's a very good example. And it shows how the power of the astrological archetypes fits right in with the message of the UFO phenomena and presence. So what does it all mean that there's such a strong connection between UFO activity and astrological archetypes? That's a big question, and it's something that I intend to continue researching. Right now, after having looked at about 150 or so UFO sighting cases and their astrological charts or astrological factors, some of them don't all have clock time, so I can't have charts for those, but the astrological factors, I would say that apparently the UFO phenomenon is aware of two things: arrangements of planetary bodies in our solar system vis-a-vis the Earth, and two, the position of celestial bodies vis-a-vis the eastern horizon, the culminating point in the sky, the western horizon, and the anti-culminating point in the north. So why should they not be? I mean, after all, they're probably traveling long distances in stellar space. Certainly they are interested in the positioning of bodies around stars. So I doubt this is any stretch logically or intellectually to accept that, there's some awareness on the part of the intelligences behind the UFO phenomenon about the positioning of celestial bodies vis-a-vis any other celestial body. In this case, one celestial body that they're interested in and concerned about is planet Earth. The astrological testimony says that these important events are occurring at astrologically significant times, implying a definite connection between the manifestation or timing of these events and astrological influences. You know, astrology gets a bad rap in a lot of places in the world. You say the word astrology to certain people and they immediately close their ears, turn up their nose, shut their eyes and their minds too. But once upon a time, astrology was a highly respected form of spiritual knowledge. That was true in the ancient world. And astrology and the exploration of the relationship between celestial bodies and human experience grew up with the other fields of knowledge that led to mathematics and physics, astronomy. It all came from the same root of curiosity about humanity's relationship with the infinity surrounding us as embodied in the sky. And even though today there's a tremendous prejudice against astrological information, there shouldn't be. We should be able to open our minds to consider different ways of understanding our experience here. I think if we just took the word astrology out and started talking about celestial positioning, we'd probably get a very different response from scientists and other people. Celestial positioning? No problem. Let's talk about celestial positioning. Well, that's what astrology is all about. It's just a very unique way of doing it, using a mapping system based on the solstices and the equinoxes and 12 equal divisions of the ecliptic called the astrological signs. That's a mapping system for the space around the Earth. That's all. You think anybody out there in science world could relate to a mapping system? I do. So perhaps someday we'll see this discussion open up to fields beyond the astrological and the paranormal, to include all kinds of perspectives and understanding why celestial positioning is relevant to A, human experience, and B, UFO encounters and sightings. Thank you so much for being here for another episode of Starspeak. This is October 18th, the year 2023, and I'm Maureen Richmond, signing off for the UNX Digital Broadcasting Network.